Hey guys, Mark Holthe here, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, coming to you live, and I am really late today. It is 3:26. I'm sure most of the people that were wondering if I was going to go live today have gone to sleep if you're on the other side of the world, and those who were patiently waiting at 3 o'clock for this to start have probably given up on me. So my sincerest apologies. And this is what happens when you are a Canadian immigration lawyer and you have clients that you represent every day, all day, and you're trying to carve out that one consistent hour of time each week to do a live Q&A for all of the amazing people that are in your social media groups. Well, that's me. Well, what happens when you're trying to juggle all those things? Sometimes conflicts arise where you're in a meeting with a client and it's really important and you just have to take the time for them. So I'm sorry that I'm late jumping on here, and we've got a great topic that we're going to do today that's all about non-accompanying spouses and the pros and cons of whether or not you should consider listing your spouse as non-accompanying in order to get that magical ITA. But sometimes, like I said, today I had a client, and my clients are like family to me. They're important. And so even though I knew I was going to be about half an hour late jumping on here, wasn't my intention, but I wanted to make sure that that client had all of me and that I was engaged and I was doing everything I could to support them. So that happened. So thanks for those of you who are jumping on now here on our Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. And those of you, I'm going to have Stephanie push out the link so that people who are trying to find me on the Express Entry Law private Facebook group, which is where I used to be doing these, so that they know that I've actually gone live. So thanks for everybody. Let's see who we have tuning in. Bapasha says hello. Ayad says hi, Mark. Manpreet says hi. Arbas says hi. Why don't you guys just post, those who are tuning in and watching live, where you're tuning in from. The numbers are starting to climb as people are joining. Like I said, today, the topic, and I'm going to pull it up here right now if I can find it. The topic that we're covering today is, let's see if we can even read this. I'm going to change up this to make it easier to read. I think that's probably not very good. Let's see here. So if I pull it up here, oh, that's not very good. I'm going to fix that. See, this is the fun of doing these live episodes, is that I'm constantly messing around while I'm waiting for people to join. So hang tight with me as I try to figure out a way to change the color of this text. Let's see, is this it? Oh, this is fun. I don't know. Guys, I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm doing half of the time here. I use Ecamm Live, which is the software that I have in order to do these live broadcasts. And now it's not letting me do this. Okay, I have an idea. I'm going to close that one off, and I'm going to see if I can find a different one that's better. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to change this one. You guys must think this is hilarious. Either that, or I'm just so disorganized. And there we go. That's the topic of today: non-accompanying spouses. But anyways, it's up. You can see it. That's great. Okay, so just post in the comments below where you're tuning in from. While we're waiting for people to join us, and the numbers are actually growing quite fast, I'm grateful that you guys are patient with me having started this so late. So I'm so sorry. But some of you will probably remember from my live broadcast 2 days ago, this is what I was doing right here. Let's see if we can get up. You can see this here. There's me. There's Joe, my bay quarter horse, who I love dearly, in one of my favorite places in all of Alberta, which is Waterton National Park. And there's me. My friend took a quick snapshot, and that trail, it's so green there. And at this time of year, and if you look outside right now in my office, I don't even know, maybe I'll spin my thing here. Can you see? Yeah, this time of year we actually get a little bit of rain. So, so that was cool. And I'm actually going to just take this one here, and I'm going to, if I can find it. Wow, I've got so many different things going on, guys. There, I'm going to turn that one off. This right here, like I said, is a picture of me on Joe. And I'm going to show you, while we're waiting, I'm going to take you on a little bit of a trail ride with me. So let's see if we can do this here, because I wanted to share it with you guys. So let's see. Let's do, I think it's this one. Okay, let's see how this works. I don't know if you can hear, but anyways, this is what we're doing, going through the trees, dodging the branches. And I'm also going to pull in another one, and I'll show you what we saw when we were there. So we were riding along the trail, and then check that out. Do you guys see that? I might have to back this up a little bit for you guys here. I'll play it again. Look at the imprint in the dirt. And I want you guys who are watching to post in the comments below what you think those little imprints are. And you can see they're pretty fresh. So just post in the comments, if you can, what you think these imprints are in the path that we're walking on. See who can guess first. So I'll leave it right there. You can kind of see it. If you know what you're looking for, you can see the imprint in the image. So those of you who are watching here, just post in the comments below what you think that is. Okay, so we'll leave that and I'll move on. Anyway, so that's that. And then I'll also want to show you guys, I'll go back here. I also want to show you some really, really cool images. So this one here is this river that's flowing out of this beautiful lake that's there. And you can see the mountains are in the background, which is just awesome. It was so much fun being there. And the sky was so blue, as you can see. The water was so clear. And unfortunately, I didn't bring my fishing rod, so I wasn't able to do that. But it is that's just one image. And then I'll see if I can show you another one. Let's see. So you can see kind of a panoramic. This is when I was sitting on Joe. He was mostly staying still for me. But that's the mountain range. And up on those hills, you can't really see like super clear, but you can see there's lots of green. Maybe I'll try and stop it here. There's lots of green you can see going up the sides of those mountains. And with those mountain ranges, you can see that there's little dark patches. And there was a forest fire 2 years ago that swept through all of these mountains and burned all of those trees down. And now the growth, new green growth is growing up through all of the forest fire area where all the trees were burned. And it's quite beautiful. And I'm waiting for the park to open up all the trails going back into those mountains. But that is essentially, yeah, what's happening. Now, as I look here, I'm not seeing a lot of comments. So I wonder if maybe my Ecamm Live is not functioning properly. I thought for sure you guys would guess what those pictures were. Yeah, I think so. Hey, Stephanie, are you seeing those comments? Any comments?
I can see comments, yeah.
Oh, it's not showing up on mine. I'm not sure why.
Everybody's guessing bear.
Okay, Stephanie says everybody is guessing bear, which is 100% correct. Why it's not working here, I'm not sure with the comments. They just got kind of stopped. And I'm only seeing the first 5 here. But whatever, sometimes that happens. There's glitches, and so I'm going to have a little bit harder time interacting with you guys because the comments are not showing there. So I'm going to go through my old school style and open up the Facebook page and watch it from the Facebook versus the comment section. And yeah, I'm not sure exactly why the comments stopped. Anyways, so thanks everybody for sticking with me here as I'm trying to, let's see, we'll turn this off there. Okay, now I can see the comments. Okay, All right, we already got questions coming, which is fantastic. Okay, yes. Okay, there we go. Now I'm seeing everybody's comments that they posted when I was showing those tracks of the bear. And the bear it wasn't a massive bear. It was probably a black bear, I'm thinking. But it sometimes is a little bit more difficult to tell. But yep, so Masood says it's a bear. Anna says a bear, bear, awesome. There we go, guys. Fantastic. Okay, so with all of this being said, it is now, I wanted to just jump on quick. Actually, I'll show you one other thing, and then that should give us, it looks like we've got enough people on now that we can kind of go forward with the substantive elements. Okay, who can tell me what this is? And so in the national park, we never pick this up. We always leave it right where it is. But who can tell me if they know what that is? And this is going to be a little bit more tricky. Some of you might know, but it was actually quite big. It was really cool. So post in the comments below what you think this is. Oh, it looks like I'm maybe back with the comments. Okay, they've all come through. Hooray. I can now see them once again. So post in the comments what you think this is. All right. Okay. So I'll move that on, and what I'm going to be doing next is we'll start off by answering the listener questions that were emailed in. We'll cover those first, and then I've got a ton of time, guys. I'm going to share a little bit about non-accompanying spouses, how it works. Oh, we're very close. Okay, Lino says an antler. You are 100% correct, and then another listener says it's a deer's horn. Very, very close. Now, what this is, yes, absolutely, it is an antler, but does anybody know what animal, what big game animal it comes from? And you don't need to be sad because this is an antler that's just been dropped. So in other words, after it grows, after the particular antler, so Ayad says deer antler. No, it's not a deer. You're close. It's not a deer though. So, so list here. Comment below what you think it is. They drop these. They shed these after they grow for the year. Then they shed them, and then they grow a new one in the next year. So this isn't the remnant of an animal that had died. This is just a big bull who lost his antler. Maybe it's too tough for you guys to know. It's called an elk. So if you want to look up Canada and elk, you will see. Yes, Silveris put elk down. Fantastic. Some of you guys knew. Awesome. So I saw that on the ground, which is really cool. Okay, enough of this. We're going to jump in, and I'm going to answer the first listener question here. And then after that, I'm going to just take a little bit of time to talk to you about non-accompanying spouses so you understand how it works. And then we're going to open it up to listener questions. Okay? So, all right. So, greetings. This is from, let's see, this is Harbhajan. So Harbhajan says, I need your suggestion as my wife is the primary applicant and our CRS is 438. If she chooses accompanying spouse, and with non-accompanying spouse, it boosts to 453. And this is the exact thing we're talking about, guys. My question is, if we go for non-accompanying spouse, and she gets an ITA in another 2 or 3 draws, will both my kids and wife land first and then sponsor me from there? And so the answer is, yeah, that's pretty much how it works. When you're listed as non-accompanying, you are not able to come with your family. You indicate here, and then he asks about what's the procedure to apply for sponsorship, how many months does it take, do I have to show proof of funds for me alone? And there's a bunch of other questions. And so, Harbhajan, your question is actually going to form the basis for this topic that we're covering today. So I'm going to pull up my screen here, and I'm going to show you the starting point. So for many of you, and I'm going to go to the CRS Criteria site, I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and I'm going to show you what we're talking about here. And I'm also going to pull up here EE rounds of invitations because that's important too. So these are the 2 sites we're going to start with. So for Harbhajan, you can see one of the things he said was that his score when he's included is 438. So if you go to the rounds of invitations and you look at what the past draws were, the most recent one was 465. We can see here that for the next draw, there was 3,300 50 people drawn out of the pool on June the 12th. This information is as of June the 7th, so basically 5 days before. So we know that at least that 3,300 people within this 451 to 600 range, there was at least 3,000 of them. So we know that there's going to be more people that have been adding in, because it's the 20th today. The 12th was the last draw. So you can try to guess and assume what you think the total may be, but it's probably going to be still a little bit higher. Will it come down to 450? And if we look at Harbhajan said his score would be 453 if he was listed as non-accompanying. It's possible. It just depends on how many of these individuals here in the 451 to 600 range are still around for the next draw. We know that all of these 36,000 here that go up to 450 are probably not going to get drawn. I guess it's possible maybe a 450 because, like I said, 3,300 of these are gone. We've got 288 there, but it's really an anomaly. Well, it's not; those are not significant. So we can do all of the projections, we can guess, but the reality is, if you're under 450, we pretty much know that it's going to be really tough. Because even 441, you can see, to 450, there's 6,000 people in the pool, which is enough for just about 2 draws. So lots and lots and lots of people that are in the queue. So then it comes down to these the rounds of invitations and trying to figure out ways to score more points. Well, as many of you know, I'm going to close this, there are different points allocated depending on whether or not you have a spouse with you or not. Your age, if you are single, you get 110 points total towards age. If level of education, if you're single, you've got 10 more points, 150. Official language, you've got 10 more points. And even Canadian work experience, there's 10 more points. And why is that? It's because if you have a spouse, a total of 40 points are allocated towards your spouse if you are someone that has an accompanying spouse that's coming with you. And the problem is, what if your spouse doesn't have as good of language proficiency? Well, there's 20 points, and that could make all the difference. And in the case of Harbhajan here, if he is included with his spouse, the score that he has is 438, which is it's not going to get an ITA at all. But if he's listed as non-accompanying, they would then rank at 453, which could make the difference. So when it comes to a spouse, accompanying or non-accompanying, it can make a big difference in your eligibility and the possibility of getting permanent resident status in Canada, and ultimately, realizing your dream of coming. So we have to take a close look at it. Well, what are the rules? What does it mean? Well, when you're going through the express entry process and you're completing your profile, if you list your spouse as non-accompanying, then you are assessed as if you did not have a spouse. So your comprehensive ranking system is assessed based on the without a spouse totals. And so, but what does that mean from a practical standpoint? It means that your spouse can't come with you. So when you land as a permanent resident of Canada, your spouse is not included in your application. Now, children can be included, which makes kind of a weird scenario, but children are not excluded. So you can include your children as accompanying and your spouse as non-accompanying. But after you've landed as a permanent resident, the only way you can get your spouse to come with you is to then turn around and do a spousal sponsorship. And there's a couple different things I'll talk about as we go a little bit later, but I want to emphasize a couple important principles. There is a big difference between being, and I'm going to go right here to another site called A11.2 assessment, and I'm going to throw in an express entry in there. And that will take us to this policy directive, these instructions that are on the IRCC website, and one of these instructions relates to circumstances of change in your personal history. So, or we call them your if you look at the top of this, it's basically assessing changes that happen to you that impact directly on your eligibility for immigration to Canada. And one of them is a change in family composition. And so if we scroll down here, and it talks about what impacts if there are changes, But the one we're worried about right here is, and we'll even skip through birthday. Some of you probably know if you receive an ITA and then you have a birthday before you file your EAPR, well, you're okay. Your age is locked in at the date in which you receive your ITA. And that's because of this policy right here. But we're going to go down further here, and then it talks about changes in circumstances declared after an EAPR has been submitted. So if you have a change that impacts on your eligibility for one of the permanent resident programs, or that affects your comprehensive ranking system score, it can result in the application being refused. But what we're looking at today is right here, changes to family composition. And there's two ways it can happen. Obviously, you have a child that's born. Well, what impact does a new child have on your application? Well, it's one more dependent, and that can then impact on your settlement funds, okay? But for us, the purpose of this whole process is, and the topic of today is, and actually I'm just going to shift back here and see if I can find this now. I'm going to pull this up here, our actual topic of the day. Where are you hiding? This is awesome. Right there. Non-accompanying spouses. Okay, so in the context of a spouse, when you're listing a spouse as non-accompanying, you're basically telling the government that, yes, I do have a spouse, and you 100% have to declare that. You have to disclose that you have a spouse. But I don't want them to be included in my application, so therefore I'm not going to be assessed for comprehensive ranking system points. You're assessed as an individual. But you still have to disclose them. You can't just pretend that you don't have a spouse because you don't want them to come with you. If you do, it can cause complications in the future. Now, in the past, there was this very brutal, ugly, harmful rule that you probably hear me talking about in past EE Live Q&As. It's called Section 117(9)D of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations. And that basically said if you do not disclose a spouse when you apply for permanent residence and you actually become a permanent resident, you can be barred forever from sponsoring them. But that's not the case anymore, thanks to our awesome Minister Hussen, who recently announced that that provision was going to be removed. And so it's pretty awesome. It removes some of the harmful nature of it. But at the end of the day, you still have to make sure that if you do disclose that spouse, that spouse has two things that are completed. One is an immigration medical and a police certificate. So there are some questions that they have to answer, and within my Express Entry complete step-by-step guide to doing it yourself, so I'll show you guys right here. I'm going to share my screen with you. All right, I'm going to pull up the CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com website, which takes me right to my Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself. And if I go into my course here, My View, and I scroll down, for those of you, and this is something that I want to point out, I have an actual video tutorial on how you answer the questions within your EAPR when you're listing your spouse as non-accompanying. So if you click on this, this is an actual video tutorial of what it looks like when you have a spouse that is not accompanying and how you answer all of the questions. So that's what this one is about. But without showing you and demonstrating exactly what you do, I just wanted to emphasize that just some of the high-level things you need to consider if you're going to actually decide to list your spouse as non-accompanying. So right off the bat, we know that if you do, there's a potential you could get more points, and that's an important factor to consider. But when it comes to listing that spouse as non-accompanying, they still have to be fully disclosed, fully included in your application, and have completed an immigration medical and a police certificate. And even if that spouse is non-accompanying, that spouse can make you inadmissible to Canada if they've had prior criminality or a health condition that could make them medically inadmissible. So you need to take that into consideration. So that's all discussing situations where you have a spouse that you're already married to and you start down the express entry process. But I get tons of questions from people who say, well, what if I decide to get married after I submit my EAPR, but before I actually land in Canada? And this is the tricky part. Well, what do you expect? What happens? How do you deal with it? Well, the most important thing to note is that if you are getting married after you've submitted your EAPR, you can include that spouse in your application before you complete the landing. So unlike a spouse that you were married to before and you listed as non-accompanying, if you try to then switch after you've submitted your EAPR and say, oh, wait a minute, now I want that spouse to be included, immigration will go back and they will reassess you. They will go back to see if, let's share my screen again, they will go back to see that if they reassessed you, they would then want to see the actual factors for the spouse right here, and they would then determine, after including your spouse and reassessing you as a married person, whether or not you met this round of invitation right here. And if, after having reassessed you, so in the case of Harbhajan here, they would reassess and find out that, oh, the score was only 438. And if we went back to a previous round and pretended that Harbhajan was given an ITA on May the 1st, when it was only 450 points, well, if they reassessed and Harbhajan's comprehensive ranking system score, after including the spouse, fell below this level, for this round of invitation in which the ITA was granted, then you will be found ineligible for the program. And basically your application will be refused. So not necessarily ineligible for the program, which in most of you is the Federal Skilled Worker Program, but it will result in that reassessment and you will no longer have the minimum to receive that invitation to apply in the first place. So your application will be returned. So that's the danger. But if I flip my screen here to family composition, you'll see here that, like I said, all family members must be examined whether or not they're accompanying. So that's the first thing. Medical and criminal, they have to be assessed. Okay? A family member can be added at any time during the process, including after the visa is issued, but it has to be prior to obtaining permanent resident status. So remember, if you decide to add a spouse that you had previously listed as non-accompanying, you can do it, but you're going to be reassessed against the minimum entry criteria and the eligibility criteria for the Federal Skilled Worker Program or the Canadian Experience class, and reassessed against the round of invitations with the spouse being included in your comprehensive ranking system score. So that's what they're getting at here. Anyone can be added, but it must be before you actually complete your landing and become a permanent resident. All right, and they say that you're supposed to inform them immediately. And what are the examples that they say? Birth of a child, marriage, or divorce. Maybe you started the process with your spouse and had a falling out and decided you no longer wanted them to come. Well, then you'd have to advise them. And so you can see right here, and this all comes down to telling the truth and being honest. Those of you who have an ITA, you may be tempted to accept the $30,000 Canadian someone is offering to pay you to include them as a spouse in your application. Well, they can say that the principal applicant right here may not include a spouse if their application was if their relationship was entered into primarily to acquire an immigration status or is not genuine. And that comes right from the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. So you can't just marry someone and then add them in and then just accept immigration to accept the marriage is legitimate. In fact, what happens if you do get married is that they will ask you to provide a lot of the same types of documentation to prove the genuineness of your relationship that you would ultimately have to prove if you were sponsoring them as a spouse after you already landed as a permanent resident in Canada. Okay? And so obviously this provision goes the same for a child if it was adopted. And you'll see here, this section A 11.2, this is the assessment process. This is where they're assessing eligibility for express entry and the comprehensive ranking system. That section A 11.2 does not apply when the applicant adds a family member after the EAPR. However, the family member will have to be assessed and the principal applicant must provide, and it says here, additional family information. Well, the reality is there's a whole bunch more than just that. And the most important thing to understand with all of this is that If you are choosing to marry someone immediately before you become a permanent resident, it's going to delay your application. In many cases, it will delay your application another 6 months to process everything for that accompanying spouse. So don't make this decision lightly. Really think about it. Really really take everything into consideration. Another thing I'll identify is that if you do list your spouse as non-accompanying, or even your children as non-accompanying initially, they're still included within the settlement funds. So you still have to factor them into how much money you're bringing with you when you actually immigrate to Canada. And it forms a part of that assessment. Okay? All right, so that basically is a very quick overview of the pros and cons of listing someone as non-accompanying. So if you, I'll just finish off with maybe just a little bit of a discussion about the family sponsorship under the family class after you're in Canada. It's really important to note that if you do choose to list your spouse as non-accompanying and you then come and immigrate to Canada, you have to stay in Canada and sponsor your spouse from Canada while you are a permanent resident. If you're a Canadian citizen, you can go back, say, to India and live with your spouse while you're waiting for the spousal sponsorship application to be approved. But as a permanent resident, you don't have that same ability based on legislation. You actually have to be physically present in Canada. Often I'll advise my clients to make sure that they have a job. The document checklist asks for them to provide the most recent notice of assessment for income tax purposes. So in other words, showing how much income tax you pay from your employment wages that your employer remits to the government for your taxes. And usually that statement, those notices of assessment are one of the document checklist requirements. But sometimes, you can get around including that if you provide a very clear explanation to show your funds and your ability to support your spouse. But I almost always would encourage you to show that you actually have a job in place before you start that process. There's no hard and fast rule. You can always provide an explanation, but that's how I treat it, and that's how I deal with it myself with my clients. So after you do that, you become a permanent resident. How long is it going to take for that spouse to come? Well, realistically, it's probably going to be right around a year, which is the processing standards that the government has listed. It's possible it could come quicker. The reality is you've already had them complete an immigration medical and a police certificate, that police clearance, and so this background information has already been assessed to some extent, but it's still going to be probably close to a year before you can be reunited with that spouse. So, lots to think about, but in some cases, and I'll share my screen again, in some cases, like we've looked at these rounds of invitations, the reality is if you have not if you've gone through this process and you've looked at the ranking right here, the lowest ranked individual that was invited to apply on June the 12th was 465. And if we go back just a few rounds, which is probably more reflective of where things are at right now, 450 has really been kind of the minimum almost. It's been quite high. So if the difference is between ever having a chance to immigrate to Canada means you have to leave your spouse behind for a little bit, well, sometimes that's a choice families make in order to succeed, in order to be able to immigrate. So, all right. Whew, that was pretty deep. That was pretty heavy. We spent a lot of time chatting about all of this, and so I appreciate you guys being patient with me as I go through that, but that was the basis of our topic today. And I'll click it up here right now, non-accompanying spouses. So I hope that was helpful. All right, so I am now going to open this up we've been going for about 33 minutes, and you guys were so patient today. I'm going to make sure that I give you all the time that you need. And so Stephanie is probably going to be going home at 4:30, but I'm going to soldier on answering your questions right now. So now you can post your comments. And they can be about anything related to express entry, okay? So don't hesitate to send those to me. I'll clear that off of the screen, but now it's open for all of you to post your comments and to just let me know where you're at and if there's anything that I can help you with. All right, let's see what we have here. So if you've posted a comment before, just repost it again. Let's see, Ralph says hi. Hello, Ralph, my good friend. Steve says, hi, Mark. Hi. And Bella, She says, you look great, love this suit. Well, Bella, I've put on a little bit of weight over the last little bit here that I definitely have to try and lose. But hey, when you've got a suit, you might as well wear it. And so I thought I'd break down and use it for today. Okay, so let's start with our next person asking questions. Okay, Yuri says, Mark, if all Canadians are as nice and genuine as you, it must be a very nice country. You know what, Yuri? I am unbelievably proud of my country. And I've got lots of friends down in the States, down in the United States, and they are super patriotic, like crazy patriotic. You know, like the United States is the only country in the world that is worth anything. It is the best place in the world. We are superior than everybody else. Well, in my own quiet way, that is exactly how I feel about Canada, especially given my profession as a Canadian immigration lawyer, how we treat people all over the world, how anxious we are to welcome newcomers to our country and not make them conform to some pre-constructed ideal of what a Canadian is. We take you guys as you are. We invite you to bring the best parts of your culture, of your experiences, your families, and add them to this amazing multicultural country that we have to make it better. So as we bring new people in with new ideas, and it just helps to add to what makes this country so awesome. So that is my thought on that, and thank you for asking that, Yuri. Okay, Arbaz says, and there's one of my other lawyers, he is heading out, and he just gave me a wave because I've got a window that I look through right on the other side of my screen here. Okay, Arbaz says, hey Mark, thank you for all the effort. My question is, my wife is the secondary applicant. She was married previously and got a divorce in 2015. We got married in 2016 and I've received an ITA. Where should I upload her previous divorce certificate as I can't see it while applying for my EAPR? It is not requested in our personalized document checklist as well. The current marriage certificate certified that she was divorced when we got married. Would that be enough? Yeah, like ultimately if you wanted to, for just your own purposes, to upload that divorce certificate in your personal, in the client information section, or we used to call it the letter of explanation section. If you want to upload it there, you can totally do it there. That's not a problem. But it's not specifically requested in many circumstances. So if you've got a valid marriage certificate, then in most cases they assume that the prior relationship that was disclosed or declared for your spouse will have been ended by a divorce. So you've got those options. If you've got it, there's no harm in including it. Okay. Thota says 450 question mark, any chance? You know what? I'm going to hold out that there is a chance. And I've got some clients that are right around that level, and I think there still is at 450, even though it's becoming more and more competitive. I think it's still the chance there. So I'm going to say yes. When? I don't think it's in the next draw because we've got to purge out a little bit of the numbers. Remember, and I'll share my screen back so you guys can see this, you'll remember that there was a draw that happened just on, let me scroll back here, a draw on May the 15th where it was just for, it was a specific draw that was 332 was the lowest ranked candidate. But this draw was a specific draw that was focused, and I'll open it right up here. You'll see, if we can find it here. Oh, I jumped the gun. I went a little bit ahead of myself here. Let's go back here. So this draw was just for the Federal Skilled Trade Program. And so because of that, there was a big gap between May the 1st and May the 29th where there were not, where there was no draw, which is we're looking at just about a month there. So because of that, usually when we have draws every 2 weeks, it meant this draw was really high at 470, and the most recent draw, you can see it's starting to come down 465. So I think it's, I think that, there's a likelihood that it is going to continue to drop. Okay, Ayad says, when do you think cutoff be back to 450? There was the answer. Bella, Oh, Bella, you're so awesome. She says, no way you gained weight. LOL. You look great. And that's why you are my best friend. Bella, you guys, if you want to go back and listen to Bella's story, it is unbelievably inspirational. So if you guys had any clue how difficult it was, but we fought and we persevered, and now Bella and her family are Canadian citizens. Her brother, Ralph, who's also posting comments here. Everybody's here in Canada, and it is awesome. And if you go, I'm going to share my screen here with you guys again. Actually, I'm going to show you this site. If you go to the Canadian Immigration Institute's YouTube channel, right here, go to my channel, you can actually find the episode. And this group is growing. We're just about to 15,000 here, which is pretty amazing because I do nothing to promote this other than post content. If you scroll down here, way down, you will eventually find the very awesome episode that I did with awesome Bella. And let's see if I can find it here. Wow, it's been so long. I wonder, I should have it here, Bella. Boy, it's been so long since I did it. Well, anyways, I can't find it. Bella, see if you can go on there, and if you can find that episode, and then we will we'll post a link in the comments for people to go watch, and they can learn more about your amazing story, and that people need to have faith and keep battling, and eventually their dreams can come true. All right, so that's the challenge I'm going to give you, Bella, if you are watching. Okay, Bipasha says, Sir, yesterday I called CIC, and they said that my file is now in Singapore under processing, as we have an interview in queue. Received ITA almost for more than 2.5 years, and in between we added our newborn. So now what would you think, sir? How long will it take for the interview to take place? After the interview, what are the chances for PPR? Wow, Bipasha, that is insane. That is so long. I'm not sure why it would have taken that long. But anytime you add a new child to the mix, it does blow up the processing time. So they can take as long as they want. There's no service standard that they have to meet. So take that into consideration, but just keep battling. Ultimately, Bipasha, if you want to connect and you want to, if there's something that I can do to help with that process, I'd be more than happy to step in and do that. Okay, and there Syed is so awesome. He tagged Mustafa there, inviting him about this awesome EE Live Q&A. All of you do that. Invite your friends. Just post and tag and invite them to join us. Okay, Manjot says, hi sir, I need your help. I will be getting married later this year. Is it okay to do a court marriage to expedite my process and enter express entry? Will there be any issues with that? So Manjot, the way immigration looks at marriages is they want to see that the marriage that you've undertaken is a legal, valid marriage in the jurisdiction in which it occurred, which is basically the country where the marriage happened. So if a court marriage is good enough to fulfill the full requirements of what a marriage should be in that country, a legal marriage, then it's fine to include it. But remember, if you're just getting married and you're not having a big ceremony, you're not making a big deal out of it, it is entirely possible that immigration would really look at whether or not they felt it was genuine. If it's customary in your culture to have big weddings and to have big celebrations when people get married, then I would expect that you're probably going to follow that pattern, because if you don't, they're going to start to think, okay, is this relationship really genuine? They're not really advertising it to family, they're not making it a big deal, and so usually people who are entering into fake marriages are not going to have all of those traditional events associated with this massive party when people get married. So take that into consideration. All right, good question. Okay, Ayad says, with the spouse, I'm at 455 and non-accompanying at 459. Do you think I should go with non-accompanying? Oh, Ayad, that's a decision that you're going to have to make, my friend. Do I think it's going to go down to 445? I'm actually pretty confident that it should. At least I believe it is. But there's no guarantee. And so, obviously, if 459 is going to score you higher, maybe you consider waiting around for a couple more draws. I'm assuming that age is a factor as well, and you always have to take that into consideration. If you're going to become 1 more year older, and if you wait, you're going to lose 5 points there, well, that can make a difference too. So you have to balance whether or not you need to get that ITA right away, or whether you can be patient a little bit and see if it drops down to 455. Okay, okay, let's see here. Okay, so this one, and I can't read your name. I'm not sure what language that is written in, if it's Arabic or what it is. But the question is a savings bank account okay as proof of settlement funds? Yeah, if it's a mere savings account where the currency doesn't go up and down, or where the investment isn't volatile, where it's at risk in the market, then yeah, you can totally include that. Make sure you get your letter that supports all of the proof of fund requirements that the IRCC wants it to state. But if you have that, then you're in good shape. Okay, Arbaz says, should I upload it or wait for IRCC to request one? As I've heard that you can apply without the divorce certificate initially, and they can come back and request. Okay, so I think I answered that question. Yeah, I just upload it. There's no harm in not doing that. Okay, and then Manjat has sent a whole bunch here, and I've answered that one already. Okay, Virender says, hello Mark. I have added my spouse in my ongoing application. My application is November 22nd, 2018. I'm married after my acknowledgement of receipt. Okay, so that makes sense. So Virender he's actually submitted his EAPR originally as a single individual. There are no changes in my profile apart from medical clearance. Any idea how much time in general it takes for the process to be completed? As overall, it has been 7 months since AOR. So I'll be honest, I tell my clients when you're adding a spouse late in the process, so after you've submitted your EAPR, I tell them to count on another 6 months. It's like they have to start the process almost all over for the spouse. So I will often assume and tell my clients that you have to project out and expect that it could be 6 months. Now, it may not be that range, but that's what I tell my clients. Okay. Okay, so Ayad says I'm at 455 with a spouse, 459 non-accompanying spouse, but I'm losing 5 points in October. So we are June, July, August, September, October. Well, it's really tricky, and I can tell you, Ayad, it's not easy for me to answer that and give you advice on what direction to go. It's a risk one way or another. You have to decide. Being separated from your wife for a full year at least is a long time, and that's really cruel. I don't think I could do that with my spouse. I don't think I could be away from her for that long. It's hard enough a week when I go on my business trips to Ottawa to meet with the immigration heads of the various departments. Being away for a week, that's hard enough. I couldn't imagine what it would be like for a full year. But as we discussed, if that's the only way you're going to be able to immigrate to Canada, then you have to make whatever sacrifices that your family has to make in order to make that dream become a reality. With 455, I'd probably hold off for another couple draws and see what happens. And then from there, then evaluate whether or not you do want to ultimately list her as non-accompanying and proceed forward with the 459. Remember, when it comes to age, as long as you receive your ITA before your birthday, you're locked in at that age. So you don't lose those 5 points if you've received an ITA. All right? Okay, let's see here if we have any that are new. Okay, VD says, I'm an international student and currently enrolled in a 2-year post-grad program in Canada. My fiancé came in Canada in January on a visitor visa. In January 2019, we got married in Canada. My husband applied for a spousal open work permit in March from Halifax. His spousal open application got approved recently. Hey, this is all looking awesome. Now my question is, does he need to the work visa stamp on his passport? If not required, then what if he leaves Canada and wants to enter Canada? So how it works is if he has a valid temporary resident visa, that visa is valid to allow him to leave Canada and re-enter, even if it's not coded as a worker. So there is that ability to leave and re-enter on that visitor visa per se. And then obviously the work permit is what authorizes him to actually work in Canada. So they're two separate things. So usually there isn't an issue with that. Okay, Ahmed says, hi Mark, I live in Edmonton. I'm applying for Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program. Okay, the Alberta Opportunity Stream, AOS. How old should the reference letter be for my current employer? Do you know what, Ahmed? I wouldn't hesitate to get it refreshed. If it's over a month old, it's your current employer. There's no reason you can't submit a current a current reference letter, employer reference letter in your Alberta Opportunity Stream application. So I actually would go and get it redone if it's over a month old. Although that's just me, that's not the law. They may very well accept older ones. But the more recent it is, the more properly it reflects the fact you are currently working with them and that the job offer they're extending to you continues to be valid. Okay? All right, let's see. Okay, so this one is Amalendu, and Amalendu says, I am 40 plus. Okay, I'm 40 plus too. Now I'm more on the plus side than the not plus side. I will be 47 here in October, which is hard to believe. I'm an old man, 47 years old. Compared to most of you guys out there, yeah, I'm feeling it. All right, so Amalendu says, I'm 40 plus. Am I possible for a PNP, postgraduated, and 10 plus service experience? Please suggest, need your support. The older you get, the less points you're going to get. The older you are, the less likelihood you're going to get a study permit to be able to come and study in Canada. And you need that study permit to get a postgraduate work permit. So there's a lot of different factors. I don't know really what you do for a living. I don't know much about your family composition. So I can't really answer you as to what is, what's possible and what isn't possible. But when you're older, everything just is that much more difficult. All right. Okay, well, I think we are closing in on a pretty good time here. I'm just looking to see if there's any other comments or questions. It seems like kind of they stall out a bit and then they come back and then they disappear and then they come back. Let's see if we've got some other ones here that have not been appearing on my my feed here. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Manjot has asked lots of questions. Okay, so there's a bunch here that just haven't popped up on my screen. And there's a lot of questions here that I just haven't seen, so bear with me, guys. I'm not sure why they're kind of getting stuck. Okay, so Ashreen here says, hi Mark, I have applied, and I'm actually just going to go in here and see why it's not pushing it out. I guess I need to click on it again. Okay, let's see if I can answer this here. Bear with me here as I scroll down through these guys so I can find the next question in line. There's a lot of questions here. Okay, I think we've got it. Okay, Bipasha says, is requesting a web form helpful to know what's going on with the file? Well, a web form, they're not usually going to answer it. I typically will do an access to information request, an ATIP, that gives you a complete breakdown of everything in your immigration file. That's what I would do more so than a web form. Okay, Ashreen says, hi Mark, I have applied for my open work permit and it will take around 2 more months to get it. Meanwhile, I plan to get married. Do I have to inform CIC about it? I intend to apply with my spouse through express entry in the next 2 to 3 months. At this stage, you don't have to disclose that at all. If you've already applied for your work permit, you don't need to update them or notify them. So there's no obligation to do that. Ultimately, if you are married, then that's when you're going to take that into consideration within the EAPR portion. Okay? All right. Okay, Hina says, I gave my spousal application in June. Now in March, I got an RCMP and medical request. Can you please tell me how much time it's going to take? Well, Hina, we know 12 months is the processing time. And so you are at that stage and you're going to be pretty close. I think personally that it should be pretty close to getting that confirmation. All right. Yuri says, Mark, how long does it take to see if your profile, that your medical test has been passed? This is all over the map. So you say you uploaded your medical results 1.5 months ago and still can't see no updates in my profile. Don't be alarmed by that. The profile doesn't always update when it comes to medicals. I've had other clients in that exact same situation where medicals have been uploaded and it isn't showing that they've reached the stage of the medicals being passed. So you just have to be patient, Yuri. Okay. Ina says it's been about 11 months and I didn't see any update online status. Yeah. Well, you know what? The processing, like I said, 12 months is processing and you just have to bear with it. Okay, Unami says, is it possible to get a visa that allows me to work in Canada holding a Botswana passport? Well, Unami, ultimately, any work permit, you have to fit the requirements of one of the work permit programs. And for you, in most cases, it's going to be based on a company who can obtain something called a labor market impact assessment to show there's no Canadian or permanent resident who can do the job before they offer it to you. And that really forms the basis of the work permits that are granted. Now, people who have spouses and people who qualify through other avenues, intercompany transfers, international agreements, those are all different. But in your case, being from Botswana doesn't impact in your work permit assessment in any way in terms of the eligibility for the work permit. Ultimately, different countries have different standards when it comes to assessing whether or not you'll actually go home if you're given that work permit, and so sometimes it can be tougher than others. And Botswana may very well be a tough country for issuing visas, but just the simple standpoint that you're from Botswana doesn't affect the actual eligibility for one of the work permit categories. Okay. Amalendu says, I'm married and also have two babies. I'm not sure, 2 babies or a 2-year-old baby. I'm postgraduated and 10 plus service experience. Am I possible to immigrate for permanent residence in Canada? I need your support. Please give suggestions. So, Amalendu, this is not something that I can explain in an EE Live Q&A with a ton of people watching. So, in your situation, you have to probably have to book a consultation with me, and then I can go through in detail and assess your eligibility and give you advice and tips on, maybe there's some other programs outside of Express Entry that might work for you, and that would require much more detailed information and a much more detailed assessment by me. So, book a consult. Okay, and Stephanie's probably just about heading out, and I'm not sure if we have posted the link for booking consults. I can't remember that, but if Stephanie's listening to this, she can put the link to where you can book a consult. Okay, let's see if we can find out where I was here. I'm probably going to miss someone, so I apologize for that. Okay, so Amalendu says, let's see if I answered that one. Yes, I have. Our boss says, the thing is, Mark, we've lost her divorce certificate, and it can take around 2 months to get a new one. Okay, well, it's pretty simple, our boss. Submit your application without it, and if they ask for it, start the process of requesting a new one now so that you've got it in case they ask for it. All right. Hasnain says, hi, Mark, I have 2 questions. How much funds are sufficient for proof of funds of settlement? Okay, Hasnain, it depends upon the size of your family. So I'll share my screen quickly with you here, and I just type in EE IRCC proof of funds, and it pops up here. And I will put this link into the comment section for you, my friend. And if you, actually, I jumped the gun a little bit. It's this one. I didn't quite wait till I got to the actual page. So it's that second link that I posted there. If you scroll down, you'll see the table right here that says how much money you need based on the number of family members that you have. All right. Okay. Amalendu says, I'm also 40 plus. Okay, that's great. I think that doesn't add a ton to the discussion. Okay, Bilal says, how much time for approval letter for spouse? I applied about last week. I don't understand what you mean by the approval letter, so you have to clarify that, Bilal, if we can get to your question again. Manjot says, thank you, sir, for the prompt response. I just need one more advice. In my culture, there are big events, which I believe they might ask for more details. Of course, yes. If I enter Express Entry with court marriage to expedite my process, is it okay to tell before itself in the letter of explanation to CIC that my ceremonies will take place later in November and enter the pool in August, and should I upload more details afterwards once the ceremonies are over? Okay, you've got a ton involved in here. It all comes down in the same thing. Like if you're going to do a court marriage to expedite the process, yes, you can, but you want to put your best foot forward. You want to put as much detail and strength at the beginning and not hope to add things after the fact. because an officer will only adjudicate the application based on the evidence that's provided. And if it looks like you just kind of raced off to quickly get married without any big events or anything, then ultimately, you're going to want to provide enough detail to satisfy that officer that the spousal, the marriage that you've entered into is actually genuine. So that's how it works. Okay, I'm going to jump down Manjot. It's posted a bunch there. Okay, Ayad says, when do I need to provide reasons for non-accompanying spouse? It is after you get your ITA, so the EAPR stage. That's often where it comes up. There might be a question early on within the profile. I can't remember exactly where it is, but most of my clients come to me at the EAPR stage saying that they want to add someone, so there isn't much time to actually address it. But in your situation, it's usually at the EAPR stage. Okay, let's see here. But Basha says, sir, is requesting a web form help to know what's going on with the file? And I think I told you that a GCMS ATIP request is better. Okay, someone says, you don't look it at all. You look early 40s. Well, great. And yes, it's Arabic is what it's Allah. Okay, it's Allah. Okay, great, Allah. That's awesome. Okay, let's see if we've got some other ones here. They've got lots of repeat questions. So, okay, I think we're going to end with Z here. So Z Aziz says, hi, sir, just a quick question. I got married in 2017, October the 18th. In court, after that, me and my wife went for a honeymoon. And then we applied for our EE in May and got ITA on the 3rd of April. We launched our AOR on May 26th. My question is, do I need to have a big wedding? And my wife is also in my sponsor visa. Since my parents were out of town and me and my wife were saving our money for migration. This is just one factor. So if you can have a wedding that looks like most people would do, a traditional big wedding with all the family, that helps to satisfy an officer easier than if you don't have a lot of documents. But there are lots of ways to support your relationship as genuine. You've got bank accounts together. You own property together. You have wills like we have in Canada, bequeathing where your estate goes when you die, and you each have a will bequeathing each other as a beneficiary. You've got utility bills, you've got tax filings from your country showing that you're a couple, you're married. So there's lots of ways to do it. It's not just that you have to have a big wedding. Hope that helps. All right, so yes, I'm going to call it quits right here. It has been an awesome EE Live Q&A today. I want to express a extreme appreciation to all of you that hung in there even though I was late getting started today. As always, remember, if you want to send me a question to be considered for an upcoming EE Live Q&A, the next one that's coming is on June the 25th, and it is covering dependent family members. So this is a little bit of an extension on what we covered today that discusses other family members and some of the problems that can arise. And one in particular that I'm going to be talking about is when you have children from a different relationship and your former spouse or the mother or father of your children is not cooperating and is refusing to have the children medically examined. And that's kind of one of the big topics that we're going to cover on June the 25th. And remember, because I am going to be heading off on a scout camp, well, it's a camp with my young men into the mountains, on the Wednesday. Next week, it's going to be on June 25th, which should be the Tuesday, and the start time will be at noon. So be aware of that. So next Tuesday, June 25th at noon is when I'm going to be doing my next EE Live Q&A focused on dependent family members. All right, excellent. Then the next thing I'm going to pull up here, if I can see that I've got the right one. Wow, I've got too many of these things. Let's see, what does this one say? Here's one. Okay, this one is my special Father's Day sale, which is coming to an end today. Well, actually, no, tomorrow. And for only $48.50 a month, you can have access to the complete step-by-step guide to doing it yourself. And if you use coupon code, and you can probably just about read it there, which says FATHER50, if you punch that in, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to go into here and go to, if you type in Canadian Immigration Institute, let's get it here, Immigration Institute, And you have options here. So if you click on Enroll in Course, and for those of you out there, I'm going to share two options. So right now I have a very limited for the monthly subscription. If you click on Enroll monthly, it's usually $97 per month. But if you add coupon code right here, and if you type this in, Father 50 in honor of Father's Day, which was last week, and you click apply, you get monthly access for $48.50. And remember, when you do this, that monthly access will continue to roll over and charge your credit card each month and so it's an automatic renewal until you cancel it. And the reason that I did that is because I had a bunch of clients who complained who booked it for 1 month or purchased a subscription for 1 month, and then once the 1 month was over, they didn't automatically apply to renew again, and so they lost their access to everything that they'd been working on. And so they had to re-register and start all over new. So in order to avoid that, this is an automatically renewing process. Okay, so that's how you can do it. But I'll also show you one other thing for those of you who are maybe not quite ready to apply but want to take advantage of a special offer that I have for members of my Express Entry Law Facebook group and Canadian Immigration Institute, but not just members, those who actually watch this. If you go to the one-time lifetime access and click on Enroll, and I always do this at the end of every one of my EE Live Q&As, so those who watch get rewarded. It's regular $497 US. If you click on Add Coupon, I have made a special offer for you guys, which is essentially EE DIY 50%. And if you type that in, lo and behold, it drops to $248.50 for a lifetime access. All right, so take those into consideration, and the monthly subscription at $48.50 comes to an end tomorrow. So you have to act on that right away. And then I'll show you a couple other things that I want you to be aware of. If you have a question that you want me to answer, let's see if I can find it here. I've got emails and all kinds of different things. So that there, the Canadian Immigration Institute, is what you type in to access the course. And then if you type in right here, if you send an email to stephanie@stringham.ca right here, and you put EE Live Q&A in the subject line right here, and your question is related to the topic, which is this one here, which is dependent family members over there, right over there, then that question will be considered for the episode that we're going to be doing next week on June 25th. Okay, so that's another way that you can access me and ask questions. If you do not put EE Live Q&A in the subject line, then Stephanie is probably going to reach out to you and assume that you want to book a consult. All right, so if you do have questions, or you're just stumped, or you're just stuck, I'm always available to help you, and you can always book consultations by going to our firm website, and the link is here in the comments section, but I will also repost it again just for you guys. I'm sure it's already here, but I'll post it again. This is the site where you can go and you can book you can schedule a consultation right here, right on my law firm website. Okay? So I look forward to connecting with all of you guys in the future. Thanks so much for tuning in. It was awesome to have all this live interaction. You guys are what makes this so cool. And I also want to express appreciation, as always, to all of you amazing members of the Express Entry Law private Facebook group. And the reason that I do it on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page now is because it's easier for you guys to share this video with your friends, and I'd encourage you to do that. When this goes live, when this recording is posted on the site, make sure you go out and share it with your friends and let them know, and then as many people as possible can benefit from it. But if for whatever reason you don't catch it, or you are watching this and want to go back and watch it again, well, you can see it here on the Canadian Immigration Institute page, or you can go to my YouTube channel, which we've already looked at before, and all of the past episodes are all here that you can access. And there's a ton of content here, guys. You can see I've been doing this for a long time, And I don't think anyone in internet land comes close to how many videos that I've done, and all directed around express entry and Canadian immigration. So take that into consideration. That's available for you there. And yeah, just like this and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and go to this right here, the Canadian Immigration Institute, and you can like this page and you can share it with your friends. Wow, I didn't even realize that. We have over 27,000 likes on this page. I've had 90 this week. That's fantastic. And then you can go in and you can read all of the reviews that have been that clients have posted. You can check and see what it's like hiring me as an immigration lawyer. And even though I'm doing all of this stuff for free, guys, understand that the thing I love to do best is actually represent you. So you can hire me and my firm to be your immigration representative with Immigration Canada, with Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. And if you just need a little bit of help, I've got a lot of different options for express entry. I can do full representation, where I actually submit your application in my representative portal, or for another option that's a little bit less expensive, where I do a complete review of your application. I call that my silver plan. And all of this is all laid out very clearly, and I'll show you one other thing here. If you go to the Express Entry Law private Facebook group again, and I'll go right here, and then when you're here, you go on the side. When I'm on my desktop, all of the different options show up right here. But on your handheld, you can also just kind of swipe to the left and see the different categories. And if you go to Files right here, I actually have uploaded my complete fee breakdown for express entry. It talks about all the service levels, talks about my guide, the fact that you get the guide free when you purchase either my bronze, which is just a document review, the silver plan, which is a review of your application in your own MyCIC portal. So you create it all in your own portal, and then I do a screen share just like this and review your application and all the documentation together with you. And then the final is the gold plan, which is what I call the full peace of mind plan. And so that's where I do it through my representative portal. And so there's all these options available to you, and you can access these right in the Express Entry Law private Facebook group. Okay? All right. Well, I think I have covered enough at the end of this. It has been an absolute delight, an absolute pleasure being with you guys again. You guys are awesome. You are so supportive, and it's just my pleasure to do this on a weekly basis. So this time, I'll see you in probably about 5 days, I guess it is, next Tuesday, June the 25th at noon Mountain Standard Time. So a little bit different time, and we're going to talk about dependents. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. It was awesome having you with me. I want to wish all of you the very, very best. As you, and as I'm clearing off my screen here, I want to wish all of you guys the very, very best as you're out there just battling away, trying to find a way to immigrate to Canada. And the avenue that all of you are facing is this crazy world that we call express entry. So wish you guys all the best, and look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, signing off. Ciao.